Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for making our channel one of the fastest growing channels on YouTube when it comes to personal finance, stimulus talk and any other aspects of your financial health. Now let me know if you noticed something new today. Guess what? It is this right here. Proudly made in America, magnetic. Thank you, Amazon Prime. So there you go. That's my new accessory for future videos. Let's jump right into this video. The White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, had a very important interview this morning with CNBC, and he said something towards the end of the interview that was very significant. In fact, I'm surprised that other news outlets haven't picked up on it yet, and I predict that in the next day or two, this is all that people will be talking about. But first, let's get into exactly what White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said in this short interview, which was a very important interview. Again, what he said towards the end is very important, and I'll get to that. So let's get into the first segment of his interview. And again, it was a very short interview. He was specifically asked about how negotiations are going between the Democrats and between the White House. And clearly, as you probably know, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows had a 25-minute call with Speaker Pelosi. Unfortunately, that didn't go anywhere. This call happened in the last few days, and both sides have been essentially blaming each other since. So here's what White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows was asked. He was asked, where do you folks stand? What about coming up with a number and working backwards from that number? Is that a workable approach for you, coming up with the price tag and working backwards from the price tag? And what White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said, and I'll let you watch him and listen to him, but what he basically said was that they disagreed with the idea of coming up with the number and working backwards from the number. In fact, what he specifically said is that working backwards from a predetermined number, from a predetermined price tag is, I quote, not a workable approach because you cannot actually arrive at any kind of number that way. He said that generally what you do is you say, hey, this is the amount of money we want to allocate to a certain program, and then you build it from the ground up. And he said that that's what we've been trying to do based on facts, based on costs associated with the program. And he said, in his words, that's been the frustration. He said that we've had discussions with Democrats on Capitol Hills. By the way, I find this very interesting. And again, this is something that I don't see a lot of people talking about. It's very clear that what the administration is trying to do is to get enough Democrats on their side, specifically to get a majority with Democrats in the Senate. Now, if you don't know the breakdown between a number of Republicans and number of Democrats in the Senate, right now we have 53 Republicans in the Senate as of right now, and we have 45 Democrats and 2 independents who generally tend to side with the Democrats. So right now, again, we have 53 Republicans and 45 Democrats. But if the Republicans can get some Democrats on their side and get to that 60 vote majority in the Senate, then there is a likelihood that the Senate could actually pass a bill, independently. So, and by the way, if you want me to do a separate video on whether the Republicans can pass a bill in the Senate without the House, then let me know in the comment section below. That's going to be a separate topic and I can get into that. But basically, what White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said is that we've been in discussions with Democrats. We've also been talking to Republican senators, and he said that we've been making real progress. He did say that we've been making real progress. He said, when we look at the things that we actually agree on and the amount of money allocated to those areas, this was big. He said, probably the biggest stumbling block that remains is the amount of money that would go to state and local. So clearly that's the big area of differentiation. That's the big area of contention, if you will, between the Democrats and between the administration. And that's why we haven't seen a stimulus deal, a stimulus negotiation agreement so far. And he said, the speaker is still at 915 billion, which is not a number that is based on reality. Again, these are the words of White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and certainly not a number that represents a lost revenue for state and local governments. Now, I will present Speaker Pelosi's side as well, because I think it's important for us to hear both sides. For me, it's not about the red or the blue. It's about the red, white, and blue. I'm not Democrat. I'm not Republican. I'm American. So I will present both sides and I will let you decide for yourself. Whenever I do these videos, people are like, oh my God, you're on one side. It doesn't matter to me to be on one side. What matters is that my viewers and my subscribers have the facts from both sides, and I will present Speaker Pelosi's argument as well. In fact, I've done a decent job presenting Speaker Pelosi's arguments whenever Speaker Pelosi has spoken out, and we've covered that, and we will cover that on our channel today as well. So make sure you listen to both sides and then come to your own conclusion. So let's go ahead and see what White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said. And again, he said that is not a number, the $915 billion from Speaker Pelosi, that represents the lost revenues for state and local governments. Let's watch the White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and listen to what he had to say today on CNBC.
When I spoke to the Pelosi camp yesterday, they said the way that they see this negotiation going is having the two sides agree on a price tag and then backfilling it from there. Is that a workable approach to you?
Well, it's not a workable approach because that's not the way that you actually arrive at any kind of a number. Generally, what you do is you say you have a certain amount allocated for this program, another amount for another program. And as you do that, you build it from the ground up. That's what we've been trying to do. Base it on facts, base it on actually the cost associated with each program. I think that's been the frustration. I will say this. As we've had discussions with Democrats on Capitol Hill, as we've continued our discussions with Republican senators, we're making real progress. And I will say that as we look at the number of things that we actually agree to and the amounts of money allocated to those areas, probably the biggest stumbling block that remains is the amount of money that would go to state and local help. The speaker is still at $915 billion, which is just not a number that's based on reality and certainly not a number that represents the lost revenues for state and local governments.
Now let's get to the second segment of the interview, which I thought was extremely revealing, specifically what White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said towards the end of the interview. It's very important that you pay attention to this and you listen to this very closely. He was asked, what is a number that the president and the Senate Republicans can support? And although he didn't provide a specific total price tag, because he did talk about the $1.3 trillion earlier, although he didn't answer the question with a total price tag, here's what White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said. He said, we actually have talked about greater flexibility for the $150 billion that were allocated to the states in the previous CARES Act. In addition to another $150 billion, he's talking about an additional $150 billion, bringing the total to $300 billion for the states. Notice he's talking about aid for state and local governments, because this right now is a gridlock. If they can come to a consensus about state and local governments, it seems like we will have a stimulus bill based on what White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows is saying, based on my opinion about his words. So what's happening is he said, we need to replace $300 billion in terms of funds for state and local, which should represent the actual loss that we see. He said, if you take the GDP reduction that we've experienced over the last quarter and based on current projections, that should indicate to about $275 billion in revenue. Now, these statistics, the White House is probably getting these statistics from their internal economists, and this is coming from the White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. Now, he said, I'm willing to look at the fact that Secretary Mnuchin also has been very clear about looking at facts. And he said, right now, it doesn't need to be a bailout as much as it needs to be additional help and stability that needs to be provided to local governments that have lost revenue during this historic time. He said that we're making real progress with some of the Democrats on Capitol Hill. This is a very, very crucial statement, everybody. It seems that what the administration is doing is trying to get Democrats in the Senate on their side so they can achieve a majority in the Senate. In fact, he pretty much said so. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said so. This is not a conspiracy. This is not some sort of game happening in the shadows. This is the administration trying to get Democrats on their side so they can pass some sort of a bill without legislation from the House. Now, again, can the Senate pass legislation without the House? If you want me to do a separate video talking about whether the Senate can pass a bill without support from the House, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll be happy to do that for you. But here's what White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said. He said that we're making real progress with some Democrats on Capitol Hill. There have been some very thoughtful recommendations, and we've actually been able to have really good discussions behind closed doors. And he said the Senate Republicans will be returning. So we will see the Senate Republicans back in session very soon. In fact, he said they've been working around the clock each and every day. And by the way, this is the important part. This is the part that is extremely crucial and is very, very significant. He said, I expect them to pass a bill, or at least put forth a bill, in hopes of getting to that 60 vote threshold sometime next week. Once again, right now in the Senate, we have 53 Republicans, we have 45 Democrats, and we have 2 independents. So it's clear that the Senate wants to pass something. Now, whether this is a symbolic gesture, whether it actually becomes law, whether the president signs it without the support of the House, those are additional things that I can cover on my channel if you want me to. But again, this is what's going on right now. These are the actual words from White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. In fact, let's watch Mark Meadows and you can listen for yourself. Let's roll the tape.
The number on that specific line item that you think the president would get on board with that could also secure the Republican votes in the Senate to pass. Is there a number that you're discussing behind closed doors?
Well, we actually have talked about giving great flexibility for the $150 billion that was allocated in the previous CARES Act, in addition to another $150 billion that would go there, which would overall give $300 billion in terms of flexibility and additional funds to state and local, which should represent the actual loss that we see. If you take the GDP reduction that we've experienced over the last quarter and based on projections now, that should indicate about a $275 billion loss in revenues. That's what we're trying to address. And I'm willing to look at the facts. Secretary Mnuchin has been very clear that he's willing to look at the facts. And right now, it doesn't need to be a bailout as much as it is just an additional help to provide some stability to those local governments that have lost revenue during this unprecedented time. That being said, we're making real progress with some of the Democrats on Capitol Hill. They've had some very thoughtful recommendations that we've actually been able to have real discussions behind closed doors. And I think as Leader McConnell and Senator Barrasso have mentioned, the Senate Republicans will be returning. They've been working around the clock each and every day. We have a call to talk about where we can find consensus there. I expect them to pass a bill, or at least put forth a bill in hopes of getting to that 60 vote threshold sometime next week.
That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something new from this video, from this brand new interview with the lead White House negotiator, Mark Meadows, and the other White House negotiators, U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. In fact, Steven Mnuchin did do an interview on Fox Business, and I'll be covering that as well. And that was a brand new interview as well. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. If you don't know anything about me, check out my story. I have the fortune, the privilege, the honor of living the American dream. I'm a beneficiary of the generosity of America. I'm a symbol of American exceptionalism. We release videos at 2 p.m. East Coast time most days of the week. Make sure you click like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you enable notifications so you get instant updates from us going forward. Speaking of notifications, if you get your cell phone out, send a text message with the word ignition or with the word time to 70,000. That's 70000. You can get added to SMS list going forward. You can also get on our email list if you go to ignitiontime.com/alerts. You can get on our email list. You can get out of our email list or our SMS list at any point in time that you want. Also keep in mind that we're on Instagram. If you go to instagram.com/ignition_time, you can follow us on Instagram. Once again, it's instagram.com/ignition_time. We're going to be releasing exclusive content specifically for our Instagram followers in the coming days and weeks. So definitely make sure you follow us on Instagram. Sometimes YouTube does not send out notifications. So make sure you bookmark our channel, youtube.com/ignition time. That's youtube.com/ignition time, so that you can visit our channel and then you can see the videos that we release on a daily basis. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, my name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda. I'll see you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Please don't forget to share this video with friends and family because this is very important. It looks like the Senate is going to be in session next week to pass some sort of a stimulus package, and it seems like the wheels are turning. Everything is in motion right now for the Senate to get a majority by bypassing the House. This would create a kind of political gridlock, a kind of political showdown, if you will, that we've never seen before. And it's going to be very interesting in the next few days and weeks, and I'll be sure to cover it for you in a factual way, so that you can understand both sides and come to your own conclusions. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Please click share and also please like, please subscribe, please enable notifications. I'll see you in the next video of Ignition Time. Thank you. Bye.